Hello, everyone out there in YouTube world, Facebook world, the world. Welcome to another episode of Musings with MGL. This is your host, MGL. I'm bringing you another video here today. And kind of what I want to talk about here today is the question that a lot of us in the gun community are always asking, especially right now, is are gun shops essential? Well, hell yes. The answer is hell yes, we're essential. They are essential. The gun community is essential, especially in a time like this. But to get to the legality of it, as a lot of people keep asking me, every time I go into a gun shop these days, it seems like the owners or people there are always asking me, what happens if the governor decides to do a shelter-in-place order and shut down all non-essential businesses? Are gun shops going to be considered essential businesses? The answer is it depends on what state you live in. If you live in a gun-loving state, like a Texas maybe, or hopefully here where I'm at in Florida, then yeah, they're going to be considered essential businesses and they're going to stay open. If you're in I hate guns and almost everything else about America state, like say New Jersey, no, they're not going to be. In fact, the New Jersey governor actually specifically declared them not essential businesses and shut them down. They also suspended the NICS system, which is, of course, the background check system, for an unknown period of time. So in New Jersey, if you wanted to buy a gun, well, number one, it's almost impossible to buy a gun in New Jersey anyway. They've got some of the most draconian laws in the state. So how much of this is really going to change what people in New Jersey can do? I don't know. Probably not a lot. But they did, in their emergency powers order, decide that gun shops are not essential. In fact, somebody asked the New Jersey governor at a press conference, what's up with that? How come they're not essential and shouldn't they be? And he basically laughed at them and said, we're happy with what we did. We don't consider them to be essential, so they're shut down. Other states, so for example, Pennsylvania recently did that, and then they actually got overturned. So originally they came out, if I recall, I believe, and actually said that they were shutting them down, that they weren't essential, and then they got overturned, and now they've decided that they are essential and they're opening them up. My guess is here in Florida, where I'm located, if our governor, Ron DeSantis, ever does declare a shelter in place and only essential businesses can be open, he's going to include firearms in the essential business list in the gun shops, because he's generally a very pro-Second Amendment governor. He is against a lot of Second Amendment laws. He's in support of the Second Amendment, and if I had to guess, I would say that if he ever shut the place down like that, he would list gun shops as essential businesses. It is ultimately up to the governor of whatever the state is, because they basically declare, when they declare their emergency powers, they sign, a law, or they enact their emergency powers under the Constitution. There generally is not in every state a pre-approved list of what's essential and what's not essential, because it could be obviously based on whatever the disaster is. Something that might be essential during, say, a hurricane disaster would be different than what's essential during a virus. So, for example, in Florida, if there's a hurricane coming, then, the hardware store might be considered essential because you need all your plywood and everything to block up your windows. But a hardware store may not be considered to be essential, and I would guess that it wouldn't be during a virus, because boarding up your windows isn't going to do you any good. So they don't have preset list of what's essential and what's not essential for these type of emergencies. It's basically an emergency case-by-case basis, and the governor basically decides what he wants to put on that list and what he doesn't want to put on the list. So if you're in a pro-Second Amendment loving state, then the gun shop is probably going to be listed as an essential business. If you're not in a pro-gun state, as we've seen, the gun shop is not going to be listed as an essential business. And there's really nothing you can do about that. I mean, you could try, I would imagine, in New Jersey and some other of these states, they might try and file some sort of a lawsuit to get some sort of an injunction against the governor, telling them that they can't do it that way. But you're probably not going to get very far with that lawsuit in the middle of an emergency, because a lot of those lawsuits take time. You could try and get an emergency injunction, which should be granted pretty quickly. But if you're in an anti-gun state like New Jersey already, most likely your judges are going to be of the same mindset probably of the governor. So they're going to support basically what the governor decides to do during an emergency. So you figure out what state you're in. Most of them that have already declared shelter in places have already issued their orders, and they've already listed gun shops as essential. or not essential. Again, most of us, obviously, in the pro-Second Amendment community would believe that gun shops are essential. And I think they are essential, especially in a situation like this, because nothing is more essential, in my opinion, than protecting your family and your property and everything else. A lot of people, though, obviously would feel differently and would be perfectly happy with a listing of gun shops as non-essential. The other issue is not just making gun shops essential to stay open. What about the things that go along with it, such as the NICS background check, such as concealed carry permit associations? Are they still processing those or not processing those? In Florida, if you do a background check at a store, it's run through what's called the Florida Department of Law Enforcement, FDLE. As of now, as far as I know, obviously they're still up and running and they're running background checks. The concealed carry permit is done through the Department of Agriculture. And right now, as far as I know, I haven't seen anything to the contrary. They're still processing permits. I actually had a client who received his permit today. So they're still processing those and they're still sending those out. If they were to issue some sort of a government stop or an emergency order, could they split the baby and leave the stores open but shut down the government entities that are responsible for processing the applications from the store? They could. It wouldn't make any sense to me, obviously, because if you're going to leave the stores open, you might as well leave the background check open. But anything's possible because one requires government workers and the other one is just private workers that work at the store. So they may, a governor could say, look, I'm going to send my government workers home so they don't have to come in and process these applications. But if a store wants to stay open, a store can stay open. But again, it's only going to happen, obviously, if they do some sort of an essential, non-essential shelter in place order. Again, thankfully here in Florida, our governor is still resisting calls for that. Again, I applaud him. Again, I think that that's the right way to go. I don't think we've reached the point yet where we need to shut down the entire state of Florida for this issue. We seem, I believe, to have it under control. Some of the numbers are going up, but a lot of that has to do with the testing, I think. So as long as the governor keeps with his non-essential / essential resistance to putting in some sort of order like that, we're going to be fine here in Florida. Gun shops are still open. People are still buying guns. People are still buying ammo. The background checks are still going through. So as of right now, they're essential. So hopefully that answers some of your question about will your gun shop be considered essential or non-essential in emergency declaration. It all depends on the state that you live in. But that's why if you're a pro-Second Amendment person, you probably shouldn't be living in New Jersey or California, or any of these anti-Second Amendment states, because this is the crop that you're going to run into. You're going to go to the store when the emergency hits, and you're going to try to buy a gun, and they're going to tell you got to wait 10 days, or you got to get some sort of special permit from the sheriff who's not going to give it to you on an emergency. And then you run the risk of your left-wing anti-gun governor shutting down all the gun shops in the background check just because he can. So you're going to see a lot of people abusing this emergency situation for their own good. They're going to be pushing their own political agendas when it comes to specifically things like firearms. If they could just do an executive order on their own forever, banning these things and shutting down these shops, they would do it, but they know they can't do it forever. But they're never going to let a crisis go to waste, so they're certainly going to do it right now while they can. And there's really not much, unfortunately, I don't think you can do about it. Again, there'll probably be some lawsuits, but by the time those work their way out through the system, who knows what's going to be happening. But thankfully here in Florida, hopefully most of you are probably from Florida who are watching this, so we're still okay down here in Florida. But keep an eye on it. Go after your politicians or your governors if they want to do that. You see some smaller municipalities trying to do it. You see some mayors trying to do it, and some county commissioners and charters, or county commissioners and again, mayors and stuff. They're going to have to look at whatever their charter is, what their incorporation documents are for the municipality, to find out what their powers are. But my guess is they probably have a similar concept that says they can't do that. However, most states are going to have something like what we have here in Florida, which is a preemption statute, which means only the state of Florida gets to dictate what the gun laws are. The local municipalities don't. There was I believe it was also maybe in Pennsylvania or even Ohio, I think there was a mayor who did that, who's like, well, I'm shutting all the gun stores down and the background checks in my county or city or wherever he was. And then the state stepped in and said, no, you can't do that. That's a preemption statute. So open them back up. And then they had to do that. So keep an eye on where you live. That's why you should live in a pro-Second Amendment state if you are pro-Second Amendment, and you won't have to worry about these issues. But if it does happen in Florida, we'll keep an eye on it. Those of us who prosecute or litigate in the area of firearms, we know how to file lawsuits and injunctive relief and stuff like that. And again, I think we got a good governor on our side here in Florida, so I'm not really worried about it. But that's the ultimate question. I get a lot, like I said, I get a lot whenever I go into the stores, and people are always asking me, hey, are we going to be essential, or are we not going to be essential? I can't give you an answer right now. Nobody can. You kind of have to wait until the governor makes a decision, and then you got to look at it and see if you're on the list, just like every other business in the state that you're living in. Are you on the list, or are you not on the list? Hopefully, gun shops are going to be on the list here in Florida and most of the other states around the country, because I do believe that they are essential, because I believe our Second Amendment is always essential. So that's the video here for today. Like and share, comment if you can. There's a subscribe button down in the corner. If you could please subscribe, like the video, make a comment. All of that stuff is going to help me boost my numbers up. And who knows, maybe someday I'll be able to monetize this and make some money off of it. Who knows? But if you could all do those things for me, I'd appreciate it. Good luck. As always, stay safe, stay healthy, stay open if you can, and as always, carry on.